sports section of the show. Desiree, you know anything about sports?
Mm-mm.
All right. It's sports, but not really sports. So Deion Sanders, the all-time, in my estimation, if there's a better cornerback who played football, I don't know his name, but the all-time greatest cornerback, in my opinion, to ever play the game, um, was obviously NFL Hall of Famer. Was recently hired as the head coach of historically black university, Jackson State University, and which is a big deal. When you think about, so I was looking up some because I know, like when I just came, I used to hear about a lot of players who went to HBCUs, but as of late, you don't really hear of them much anymore, and it all makes sense. So I was reading some article earlier, and it was saying that like in the like 50s to 70s, when many schools just kind of just started allowing black players, many big schools like Texas A&M, Oklahoma just started allowing black players to come in. Before that, they had to go to HBCUs. So you had some really talented players who could not go to, the big predominantly white schools would not allow them. So they went to HBCUs. So HBCUs were dominant. They had like 30 something Hall of Famers who went to HBCUs. But as time changed and they start letting in more black players in the 80s, 90s, and so on and so forth, like the best talent didn't go to HBCUs anymore. Which, it's unfortunate, but it happens. So with Deion Sanders, with a big name like that, and there have been all kinds of rumors about what his full coaching staff is going to be, but these are all big name athletes that have been thrown about, which could really change the recruiting game because you're any player going to college, you want to try and get to the pros, and if you kind of have that connection, it will be a big deal. So with that said, do you think the hiring of Deion Sanders will change the game for Jackson State and for HBCUs in general? Tex.
Well, it will definitely change the landscape of recruiting for HBCUs. Number one, Deion Prime Time Sanders. I don't know if y'all, well, for those of us who are old enough to have seen him play and watch him throughout the years, Prime Time.
I've seen tapes. I wasn't that old. I've seen tapes.
You was at the games. Prime Time was a mantra. Okay, this dude lived for the flair, but not only did he live for the flair, he backed it up every Sunday. Every Sunday, night in, night out. He would talk noise and back it up. I don't know if people were privy to actually see the introduction of Deion to Jackson State.
No, that was prime time.
That was vintage prime time. Okay, he was escorted by the police. The Jackson State band played music while he was coming in.
I thought it was Obama coming in.
Exactly. He gave a speech, and we all know Prime is charismatic. I mean, he should be, after this, he should be actually a preacher. But what we really have to think about is athletes of this caliber never coach. Okay? Yeah. And you have to think about why he decided to coach. Mm-hmm. Okay. And when I listened to his interview or his speech, I could tell it was all about the kids because Deion has enough money.
Yeah, it's not the money.
Yeah, it's not the money or anything like that. He's coached high school level his sons. His sons are all grown. Basically, he basically said his sons are grown. They're out the house. It was time for him to do something else. Mm-hmm. And one reporter asked, not asked, but basically said, if it's about the kids, Deion will be successful. But if it's about him, it'll fail miserably. And
I agree with that.
It is true.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't have been even a question for the simple fact that we all know he's set. He doesn't need to do anything else. He has, analyst jobs, things like that. So to step into a role in the HBCU is big, especially in the climate that we're in right now, where the focus is on Black people, their rights, and things like that. So the recruitment classes are definitely going to take a shift and change, because I think more people are aware of the things that are going on right now, and will take a stand and say, you know what, instead of going to a Oklahoma or a Alabama or things like that, let me go represent, for a HBCU.
Why would anybody want to go to Oklahoma?
No, you make a really good point.
We know, UT.
Me and my son actually had a college conversation today, and he was like, "Mom, what about an all-Black school?" And we had never discussed that before. So yeah, there's definitely been a shift.
Yeah. So you mentioned that for somebody like Deion Sanders, a big name like that. So from a budgetary standpoint, the HBCUs you can't compete with a Texas or Texas A&M or Oklahoma. Just from a budget standpoint, the athletic department at UT generates $200 million a year. Compared to Grambling's like $7 million a year. So for coaches big name coaches who decide to do this, or former players, it will have to be about a greater purpose. It can't be for the money. You're not going there to make a killing. You're going there because you want to impact those kids. You want to change the game. So if we can get, enough people like that, it can have a big impact. So I don't. It's not feasible to me that you're going to have programs, be as dominant as like Grambling was on Eddie Robinson, and it's not going to happen because the money dynamics are just the differentiation there is too great for that to really happen. But can he make a big impact at Jackson State and make some top 5-star players say, hey, I say you're a cornerback, coming out of some school in Tennessee or what have you. Yeah, you're going to look at Jackson State if you can play with Deion or play for Deion. So I think you'll have enough players who now actually consider it that wouldn't have before, and I think that's a great thing. And prime time. Deion is. He's a big talker and backs it up, and he's a showman. So it's not literally about the money for him, but for somebody like that, he has tremendous pride. Deion not going to do with losing.
Right. So somebody asked, with Deion being on his level, what are his expectations for his players? He basically said, I don't expect players to be Deion. I expect my players to be the best that they can be. And that's, that's all he wants. So, that speaks volumes on, what he's bringing to the table and the effect that he's going to have on these young men. So it's definitely going to change the game. So, because a lot of these, Big Ten schools and things like that would normally get, say 7 out of the top, 10 recruits, may only get 2.
Yeah,
and that can change the game, definitely.
Yeah, and another thing, the Jackson State games are going to have a lot more eyes on them than they did before. So for some players who may not have gone to Jackson State because I'm trying to go pro and I need scouts at the game, they're going to go to see what Deion has going on. So that that's a big deal.
That's the main reason a lot of these kids go to these big schools is because of the exposure.
Exposure,
They're
on TV every week.
They want to be seen on TV, exactly.
Yeah,
they want to be seen on TV. They want the scouts to come to the games, and with a big name like Deion, of course, the eyes are going to be on them. So,
especially, what's PV going to do?
Yeah. Me, I believe that Deion was sent there. I believe that Deion was sent there by God I believe.
He said the same thing.
First of all, they just
Yo, finish this speech now. I believe.
did God
that
strike
we
you down
will
earlier
cope.
after you said God can't fix Corona? Is that what you said?
But let me tell you something. One thing, being one of the past SWAC student myself, I believe that we need the hype, and Dion is the kind of person that can bring the hype. And you know what comes behind hype? Funds. They're gonna start investing
what it's about.
in HBCUs, and that is what we need. We need somebody that can make our league so exciting that people will start looking and start investing. And I really believe that he can do this. You know, I've seen what people have been saying about him. I've heard what he has to say about the league himself, what he thinks he can bring to the league, his confidence in all these students. I think he can do something. Even if it's just for a little bit, even if just a minor contribution can be huge for SWAC. So that's what I believe.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I mean, you hit the nail on the head on what it's really about. With that hype comes money. It comes. Jackson State already has they have the highest attendance out of all HBCUs, right? So Dion, traveling to Houston to play TSU or to play PV or people are going to go to that game, right? And I think it will elevate the budgets. Football it's expensive to maintain a football program. But yeah, I think he will have a big impact in that way. And that's what it ultimately comes down to. If we can get more, and also when sometimes like particularly smaller schools question the value of having a football program. The football is a very big recruiting tool for students to go to that school. I mean, when I was growing up in the 80s, I wanted to go to SMU strictly because of their football program. I loved Craig James, Eric Dickerson. I wanted to go to school just for that purpose. So I think that especially kind of hit the nail on the head. With that hype and with that attention, you're going to have people, who want to go to that school. And with that, comes, you have increased interest in the school. Let's say if Biden and Kamala Harris win, then you have, more HBCU exposure. Kamala having been a graduate of Howard University, just more exposure. And, I think that is a good thing. So the more and more positive attention that we can bring to HBCUs, the better. So I think it's a great thing. I wish him all the best. I hope, all boats rise with the tide. As Jackson State goes, so goes the rest of the SWAC, so goes all HBCUs. There are 102 HBCUs in the country. I had no idea that there were that many. So, Coach Prime, we're wishing you all the best.